Let's shift to another topic since Attorney General Barr testified this week, maybe testifying again. It's interesting as more information comes rolling out about the Muellergate. This article from the Daily Caller from Chuck Ross. Cambridge academic reflects on interactions with Spygate figure. Her name is Svetlana Lokova. Says she did not get along with Stephen Halper, which is what she says made a dinner invitation to Cambridge University professor's home in January 2016 all the more peculiar. Quote, Halper was a lurking presence with a horrible aura. I avoided him, said Lokova, a Cambridge postgraduate student who studies Soviet-era espionage. Lokova dodged the invitation to Halper's home, which she said was sent to her by Christopher Andrew, a Cambridge professor and official historian for MI5, the British Domestic Intelligence Service. But the past 3 years have revealed new details about Halper and other activities that went on at Cambridge that have caused Lokova to question why she was asked to dinner at Halper's. For one, a series of stories that appeared in the press in early 2017 heavily implied Lokova was a Russian agent who tried to suborn Michael Flynn at a dinner hosted at Cambridge, February 28, 2014. Flynn served at the time as director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. A year after those stories appeared, the Daily Caller News Foundation reported Halper cozied up to 3 Trump campaign advisors, Carter Page, Sam Clovich, George Papadopoulos. Isn't that interesting? Those are the ones, particularly Carter Page and George Papadopoulos. Those are the people that the Department of Justice and FBI used to claim they were some kind of ties to Russia, when now we're finding out it was Fusion GPS, was Bruce Orr at the FBI, his wife Nellie Orr working with Fusion GPS and working with foreign agents. Former foreign agent also we know from MI6. But apparently they're working with the British government in trying to create reasons that the FBI could go before the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act Court, FISA Secret Star Chamber, and get warrants to spy on the Trump campaign. It's all starting to come out. This is somebody who is now described, or has been in the last 2 years, oh, this was a Russian agent. Turns out she was being manipulated by MI5 and by people, as we'll be finding out, with the Justice Department, FBI, Clinton campaign, try to set up so that they could go after the Trump campaign officials, spy on them, and potentially bring down the Trump campaign as an insurance policy, just in case the unthinkable happened and Donald Trump were elected president. The article goes on, a year after those stories appeared, as it says, Halper cozied to 3 Trump campaign advisors. In May 2018, Halper was revealed as a longtime CIA and FBI informant, a revelation that led President Donald Trump to accuse the FBI of planting a spy in his campaign. The Republican coined the term Spygate to designate the alleged scandal. After Halper's links to American intelligence were revealed, the New York Times and the Washington Post reported he and another Cambridge luminary, former MI6 chief Richard Dearlove, raised concerns about Lakova's contacts with Flynn that were subsequently passed to American and British intelligence. Far bigger than Watergate, because Watergate concerned people hired by the committee to re-elect Richard Nixon, when this involves the spies, own control, and former spies of the British government working in collusion with the FBI, the Clinton campaign, Fusion GPS, says Lakova blames Halper for distorting her brief interaction with Flynn into, quote, an international espionage scandal in which she wound up as collateral damage. What Halper staged, she said, is a textbook black op to dirty up the reputation of a political opponent. He needed an innocuous social event to place Flynn in a room with a woman who was ethnically Russian. I was unlucky to be picked. Lakova, a dual Russian and British citizen, has spoken out before about Halper and the allegations about her in the media. She accused Halper of making false and absurd claims about her in a 2018 interview with the DCNF. She has also taken to Twitter to criticize the reporters who published allegations about her and Flynn. The Guardian's Luke Harding is one target of Lakova's ire. She has criticized the British reporter for a March 31st, 2017 story that contained thinly veiled allegations she tried to compromise Flynn. According to the report, which was based on anonymous sources, American and British intelligence developed concerns about Lakova's interactions with Flynn at the February 2014 dinner, which was hosted by the Cambridge Intelligence Seminar. Halper, Dearlove, and Andrew are co-conveners of the seminar, which hosts events for current and former spies. Halper, Dearlove, and Andrew, they appear to be the ones that should have been spied on, but instead they are the ones being used by British intelligence working together with the FBI, the Department of Justice, Fusion GPS, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Clinton campaign to come after Donald Trump. The Wall Street Journal also published an innuendo-laden story March 18, 2017 about Flynn and Lakova. The hook for the story was that Flynn failed to report his contact with Lakova to the Defense Intelligence Agency. Lakova, who has lived in the UK since 1998, vehemently denies the insinuations in the article she is a Russian agent or she tried to seduce Flynn. She has provided emails and photographs to the Daily Caller News Foundation to help back up her case. She also notes that all of the allegations about her have been made anonymously. Dan O'Brien, a Defense Intelligence Agency official who accompanied Flynn to the Cambridge event, told the Wall Street Journal he saw nothing untoward involving Lakova. Lakova's partner, David North, has told the Daily Caller News Foundation he picked Lakova up after the event. Since learning more about Halper, Lakova has reflected back on the few interactions she had with him over the years at Cambridge. A veteran of 3 Republican administrations, Halper joined Cambridge in 2001. From his perch at the Stories University, Halper wrote books about American politics and the geopolitical threat that China poses to the West. He received over $1 million in contracts from the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment to write studies on Russia, China, Afghanistan. It's interesting, as an aside, but Adam Lovinger was working for the Defense Department, and his job was to look for improprieties within the Defense Department. He noticed this $1 million contracts going to Stephen Halper, said, wait a minute, we're paying this guy $1 million? We're not getting anything for it? What is this about? And for that, the Obama administration crushed Adam Lovinger. He was an honest whistleblower. He wasn't even a whistleblower. He was doing his job, which was to look for improprieties. He found things that raised questions. He raised the questions about why is Stephen Harper being paid all this money? We're not getting anything from this guy that helps the Pentagon. Why is he getting $1 million from the Pentagon? Well, unfortunately for Adam Lovinger, he stepped on a landmine. And the Obama administration set out to get him fired and to destroy him for noticing the impropriety. At least it appeared to be an impropriety. That's why he brought it up. That involved Stephen Halper, that was used by the Obama administration, Justice Department, FBI, Fusion GPS, to help them try to set up the Trump campaign. Lakova says she first remembers seeing Halper in November 2013 when she gave a talk about her research on Soviet-era spy archives. She said, the guy looks at us like we're completely horrible people and then gets up and sits across the room. Lakova said she learned from a Cambridge faculty member that Halper was spreading rumors that she was linked to Russian intelligence. Anyway, it just shows how outrageous the conduct has been that we're now beginning to find out about. And certainly it was high time that after 2 years of finding nothing, for which the Mueller special counsel office was set up, hiring people that hated Trump, they couldn't find anything. They couldn't find evidence that they could take to a grand jury and get an indictment. And that's just probable cause. That's not beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And certainly because Mueller couldn't stand the man that 24 hours before Mueller was offered special counsel job, he had been begging President Trump to make him the director of the FBI again. President Trump turned him down. 24 hours later, he jumps at the chance, although he was certainly should have recused himself. He was conflicted far too many ways to be a special counsel on something involving Russia. He jumped at the chance to investigate the guy that refused to hire him. Another article from Catherine Herridge, and Catherine Herridge has done extraordinary work looking into these different issues. And she points out that a Russian woman claims she was manipulated into entrapping General Flynn, a Russian-born academic who was at the center of attention in 2017 for past contact with former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, told Fox News in an exclusive interview she is not a spy for Moscow and, to the contrary, believes she was used to smear Flynn. She said, quote, I think there's a high chance that it was coordinated. I believe it needs to be properly investigated. So Catherine's done good work on that. And then article from Jason Beal from the Federalist titled How Obama Holdover Sally Yates Helped Sink Michael Flynn. And of course we know Sally Yates was working as the Deputy Attorney General, and she refused to defend constitutional activity by the Trump administration, so she was fired. Unfortunately, there were people that were totally devoted to Sally Yates, couldn't stand Trump, some of whom are still at the Department of Justice undermining the Trump administration. But this goes on to say, Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates made a couple of urgent trips from the DOJ building to the White House, carrying information she believed to be critical to U.S. national security. Yates was aware, likely through intercepts of Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, communications that the newly seated National Security Advisor, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, had discussed with Kislyak Russia's response to the Obama administration's imposition of sanctions for Russia's attempt to meddle in the 2016 election. According to news reports, Flynn asked Kislyak to wait a few weeks and allow the incoming Trump administration a chance to review the issue before Russia retaliated. Flynn's conversation with Kislyak occurred December 29th, the day Obama announced the sanctions. Recall that this period between the election of Trump in early November and his inauguration in late January was characterized by a frenzy of questionable and as yet unexplained actions taken by the Obama White House, intelligence agencies, and the State Department. The Steele dossier was in circulation at various levels of government and media officialdom. Carter Page's communications and those of anyone with whom he communicated and anyone with whom they communicated were being monitored by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the National Security Agency. The great unmasking had also begun, with unprecedented numbers of requests forwarded from various Obama administration officials to the NSA to reveal the identities of American citizens otherwise protected in their reporting and transcribing of intercepts of foreign official communications. Distribution regulations were relaxed to allow wider access to these NSA intercepts. And the word went out through the halls of every government agency to get everything into the system, lest these barbarians coming into office destroy evidence and deny their roles as Russian agents. It was inevitable then that David Ignatius at the Washington Post would publish a column on January 12th describing Flynn's December 29th phone calls with Kislyak, information he attributed to, quote, a senior U.S. government official. Ignatius' column began thusly, quote, something is rotten in the state of Denmark, mutters Marcellus as ghosts and mad spirits haunt Elsinore Castle in the first act of Shakespeare's Hamlet, unquote. After this past week of salacious leaks about foreign espionage plots and indignant denials, people must be wondering if something is rotten in the state of our democracy. How can we dispel the dark rumors that, as Hamlet says, shake our disposition? Well, the senior U.S. government official who leaked both the name of a U.S. citizen captured in an intercept of foreign government officials' communication and the fact that the foreign official was under NSA surveillance has not been identified, nor has there been any indication that a thorough investigation has been made or is being carried out in search of his or her identity. It's a crime. What happened to smear Flynn and the Trump campaign involved crimes by senior DOJ officials. Perhaps it was Sally Yates that committed the crime, perhaps others, but it needs to be investigated, and there was no way in this world that Robert Mueller was going to investigate anything to do with corruption in the Obama administration. There it was, all these leaks that were clear, most each of them would have been a crime, plenty of evidence there to support. But instead, Special Counsel Robert Mueller pursued things and got indictment for things that made clear we didn't need a special counsel to do what Bob Mueller was doing. You look back, there's nothing he did, nothing he produced that could not have been done without a special counsel's office. In fact, he ended up having to pass some stuff off to the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. Even as badly compromised as Bob Mueller was from even being special counsel, he recognized he had gone beyond his limits, as broad as they were, and needed to pass some of those things off. Another article here from Brooke Siegman, DOJ watchdog reportedly scrutinizing role of FBI informant in the Russia probe. Talks about Inspector General Michael Horowitz looking into Stephen Halper's work during the Russia probe, as well as his work with the FBI prior to the start of that probe. And article goes on to talk about Halper. I mean, he was used to try to set up Michael Flynn. He was used to try to set up Papadopoulos, used to try to set up Sam Clovis. That was the insurance policy that Peter Strzok, Lisa Page texted lovingly back and forth about, although to the ignorance of Peter Strzok's wife. Some people think when I asked Peter Strzok in our judiciary hearing about him having that same smirk the hundreds of times he lied to his wife, that was inappropriate, violated the rules. Well, the rules in our committees are extremely relaxed compared to rules in a jury trial, of which I've had many as a litigant and as a judge. I know the rules. And I heard him in his deposition talk about how he never lies, he just always tells the truth. And I knew he was lying when he said basically he remembered Frank Rucker, the investigator for the intelligence inspector general, coming over and advising. He remembers Frank Rucker coming over and advised about something, but he didn't remember what it was about. And I guarantee you he was lying when he said that, because when Frank Rucker went over, and it's now public, I knew at the time, but it's now been made public, it was China, and the intelligence inspector general knew China was getting every email going in and out of Hillary Clinton's private server. And since Strzok and others apparently had protected information about what happened with her server, here comes the intelligence inspector general's investigator that discovered the fact that her private server had been compromised, and he rushes over with Jeanette Mitchell from the intelligence community. She was her attorney. They briefed Dean Chappelle, that was the FBI liaison with Intel, and the FBI's head of counterintelligence, Peter Strzok, and he tells him, look, we now have proof positive Hillary Clinton's private server was hacked. We found this anomaly in there, and as I dug in to figure out what is this thing, it was an embedded placement in the server that directed every email coming in and every email going out of Hillary Clinton's private server that we also know contained classified information, directed it to go to a known front organization for the Chinese government. And Peter Strzok, after all the protection he tried to afford Hillary Clinton, he's going to sit there and lie and say, well, I remember Frank Rucker coming over and telling something, but I don't really remember what it was. He remembered very well what Frank Rucker said. That was a lie. And since he had said previously he told the truth, then any time he had ever told a lie, it would have been admissible in front of a jury, even with the more restricted rules of evidence. You could have asked about every time he ever lied. I just chose to make one blanket question about the hundreds of times he lied to his wife. He does not always tell the truth. He's a liar, and he lied there under oath. And that wasn't the only thing. Yep. As David Ignatius, that participated as a recipient of a crime, really, sending him leaked information from either the Justice Department, FBI, NSA, any one of them that submitted information to him, committed a crime. We need to know who it was. We need to know how deep and how far these crimes committed by our people who are supposed to be investigating crimes, not committing them, how far this goes. And now that Mueller will be out of the picture, I think we've got a chance to get those things determined. As long as he was there, then really these folks were protected. But now that he is finished wasting America's money and time, now we can start getting down to investigating the real crimes that occurred.